Huh? Cold? I don't care. Reflect on it overnight, in there. Through the door separating us, my mother-in-law Elizabeth yelled at me and locked me in the bathroom. Then simply walked away. Outside was freezing cold. The leftover bath water was too cold for any comfort. Shivering and in tears, I reached out to my husband for help, only to hear, "It's your own fault for always complaining. You brought this on yourself. I'm going to sleep. You're not thrown outside, are you? You always overreact." His words didn't feel like they could come from someone I shared a blood relation with. Little did I know that this would lead to what happened the next morning. My name is Kate, a 33-year-old office worker. I met my husband John through a friend and married him a year ago after 2 years of dating. He was a man of few words, but intelligent, which drew me to him, but I'm already regretting this marriage. Of course, there's a reason for that. His family home is far away, and frankly, I somewhat dread visiting it. My family home is from Grandpa's time, a bit old-fashioned. These were the words my husband said to me when we were going back to his hometown to greet his parents-in-law. His grandparents had passed away a few years ago, and now it's just the parents-in-law living there. Well, even if it's old, it's still inhabited. Though maybe it's like a historic home. These days, that kind of thing is in vogue, so I was a little excited as we headed to my husband's family home. This place? I was so surprised by the building in front of me that I had to ask my husband if we were at the right place. Can people really live here? It's more than just a little old. In fact, to put it another way, albeit a bit rudely, it looked like it might fall apart at any moment. Mysterious plants were climbing the exterior walls, which my husband explained were there for shade. Some of the second-floor windows were broken and had been patched up with cardboard from the inside. My family home isn't a mansion, but it wasn't like this, not even my grandparents' house. The house next to my husband's family home had a well-maintained garden, and I couldn't help but compare. Without paying any mind to my overwhelmed state, my husband walked up to the entrance and, without ringing the doorbell, energetically opened the door. "Hey, we're here!" Then the parents-in-law appeared from the back of the house. "You must be tired from the long journey. Come in." I felt a bit relieved seeing their smiling faces. Every step we took inside, the floorboards creaked. The house was old inside too, but we managed to finish our greetings and then headed back home. What an incredible house. Although I was shocked, it didn't make me reconsider my marriage to my husband. We wouldn't be visiting often, so I decided to brace myself and do my best whenever we did. Getting married often reveals unseen sides of your partner, and I learned that my husband really treasures his belongings. "Want to buy a new shirt? Look, this one's neck is all stretched out." When I pointed out his stretched out shirt, he proudly countered, No, it's still good to wear. This kind of wear adds character, like distressed jeans." One could say it's good to value things, but it bothered me when he would comment on my belongings too. I've been using my mobile phone for 3 years now. The battery's not great, and I'm thinking of getting a new one. While I was excitedly browsing catalogs, he said, "Why? It still works, right? Isn't it better to wait until it breaks? It's coming out of our household budget, and mobile phones aren't cheap." My husband complained to me, "It's too late if it breaks." But he did have a point. Mobile phones are not cheap. And after his comment, I felt hesitant to buy a new one when my husband had been using his phone for 5 years. Though I had my disagreements, our newlywed life continued peacefully. My husband John isn't picky about food and always finishes everything I cook, saying it's delicious. It was gratifying to cook for him. "Let's go to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. It's been a while, and Mom keeps nagging me to visit." I braced myself at my husband's words, but I was determined. There, I made a new discovery at my husband's family home. "You both came! It's good to see you!" The house, which I hadn't seen for months, was as usual, with its exterior vines creepily flourishing due to the summer sun. While making small talk, my father-in-law, Daniel, asked us to help weed the garden. Despite my reluctance due to the strong sunshine, I couldn't refuse and went outside. Standing there, I was sweating so much I felt like collapsing. Suddenly, I felt a gaze and saw the neighbors standing in their garden, staring at us. I said hello, but when they noticed my parents-in-law, they made a puzzled face and went inside. Elizabeth then said, "Don't bother greeting people like that, Kate. That person's not right in the head." I was startled by her loud voice. After about an hour, we finished, and the garden, previously overrun with weeds, was completely clean. "You must be sweaty. Go ahead and take a bath." That's when I realized I'd never seen the bathroom in my husband's family home. I followed my husband, who had picked up a change of clothes, into what I thought was a storage shed in the garden. I quietly asked John, "What's Daniel doing with a change of clothes in there?" "It's a bath," he replied nonchalantly. "Our house has an outdoor bathroom." I was visibly shaken by his words. "Huh, a bath? I thought it was a storage shed." Later, I learned that my husband's family home originally didn't have a bathroom. They used to use a relative's nearby, but when the relative moved, they decided to add one. However, there was no space inside, so they installed it in the garden over 30 years ago. The bathhouse's walls had deteriorated due to weather exposure. I was in shock, and didn't want to enter. But I needed to wash off the sweat. I wanted to wash off my sweaty body right away. I had brought a change of clothes since Elizabeth had insisted we stay over before we came. I'll endure it. I need to wash. After debating with myself, I decided to take a bath. Surprisingly, it was clean and looked like a typical bath. Relieved, I soon realized something, and called John back. "Wait, John, where's the lock?" He casually replied, "A lock? There isn't one. It's inside our property, so it's fine." I exclaimed, "No lock here either?" There was a reason for my shock. The toilet in my husband's family home also doesn't have a lock. It was unlikely that someone would enter. But it was still unsettling in someone else's home. The most shocking was their habit of not locking the front door. It seemed there was no custom of locking anything, and people with business at the house would just open the door and call out. "Elizabeth, the world's dangerous these days." I tried to encourage locking up, but she dismissed it, saying, "This is the countryside. Besides, there's no one around here wicked enough to steal." That left me uneasy. In the end, I quickly took my bath, anxious and eager to get out. Being a worrier, I slept clutching my valuables. From now on, I decided to definitely refuse to stay overnight when visiting my husband's family. I had made up my mind. As the seasons changed from summer to autumn and winter, and the end of the year approached, I began to experience more stomach aches. We hadn't planned to visit my husband's family for the year-end holidays, but a few days ago, he suddenly said, "Looks like Uncle and cousins are coming over for New Year's Eve. Mom is insisting that we come." "Kate, you haven't met them yet, right? Think of it as just showing your face, please." He suddenly said something like that. We hadn't had a wedding ceremony, just a dinner with both families, so I hadn't met my husband's relatives yet. It seemed Elizabeth already knew we were coming, and I was really annoyed at my husband's selfish decision. "Hey, don't decide on your own. We agreed to visit my family this year, remember? My mom is looking forward to it." My husband got a little angry at my words. "What can I do about it? Isn't it normal to visit the husband's family? Sometimes you're a bit selfish." He said that. What? Selfish? That doesn't make sense. I was furious. The atmosphere between us remained tense until we left to visit his family. I began to think maybe we were too different in values, especially with his tendency to hold on to things too long. My stomach aches persisted. It was during our trip to his family's house for the year-end. Unable to stand the awkward silence, he said, "Hey, I asked Dad to put locks on the doors. I'm sorry." Seeing his apologetic face, "It's okay. Thanks for the lock thing," I quietly replied. Little did I know what would happen a few hours later. When we arrived at his family's home, the relatives had already gathered. The small house felt suffocating with so many people, but everyone was really nice. When they learned about my university and workplace, an uncle said, "That's impressive. John, you married a wonderful person." I smiled and thanked him for his polite remark. My husband and his family seemed displeased, hearing our conversation. I felt a chill down my spine, but didn't think much of it. After the uncles left, leaving just us and the parents-in-law, the room temperature seemed to drop. "It's cold. Let's take turns in the bath and then go to bed." I glanced at Elizabeth, who seemed her usual self. Daniel usually bathes first, so while waiting inside, Elizabeth said, "By the way, Kate, isn't it a bit self-centered to ask for locks? Look, we put one on for you." I was surprised when Elizabeth told me to go to the bathroom. I was shocked to see the lock on the toilet was on the outside. Just a simple hook. "What is this?" I forced a smile. "Let us know when you want it locked," and she said with a malicious grin. I thought, what a spiteful person. This is ridiculous. It's not a prison, so don't mess around. As the daughter-in-law, I was last for the bath, and stepping outside, the extreme cold made me shiver. It was an unusually snowy year for the region. The bathhouse door had the same type of lock as the toilet, again, on the outside. Frustrated, I entered the cold, drafty cabin. Just awful. Then, as soon as I entered, I heard someone lock the door from the outside. "Who's there? John?" Trembling from the cold and fear, I asked the person outside. "John said he was going to bed. I can't wait for your bath to be over. And I'm going to sleep too. Good night then." Elizabeth laughed mockingly and started to leave. Of course, the door was closed and wouldn't open. If Elizabeth left, I wouldn't be able to get out of here. "Elizabeth! Wait, please! Open the door! I'll be trapped here!" I banged on the door with my numb hands. "You're so noisy! Don't shout like that! It was you who wanted the door locked. Plus, you mocked me earlier, didn't you?" "What? What is she talking about? Is she out of her mind? What are you talking about? Just open the door, please!" I felt like I was going to explode with anger. "Just because you went to a slightly better college than John, you brag about it. You must be looking down on me in your heart for not having a college degree, right?" It was the first time I knew that Elizabeth hadn't gone to college. I only mentioned my college and workplace because she asked. I wish she'd consider how it feels to be subjected to her irrational, educational inferiority complex. "Elizabeth, please, open the door! I'm freezing to death!" As I said this, with a shivering body, cold. I don't care. Reflect on it overnight. There." With those words, Elizabeth hurried back to the house and showed no signs of returning. Tears of frustration rolled down my cheeks. Fortunately, I had my mobile phone with me and shakily called my husband. "Please answer the phone." "Yes?" After a few rings, my husband answered the phone in an irritable voice. "John, help! Elizabeth locked me in the bathroom. Please, come quickly." While I felt relieved, my husband said, "It's your fault for always complaining. You reap what you sow. I'm sleepy and going to bed. You're not thrown outside, so stop overreacting." And he abruptly hung up. I couldn't believe it. At the same time, my mobile phone's battery died. The reception was bad at my husband's family home, and the battery drained quickly, partly because I forgot to charge it last night. I felt pathetic. Despite my efforts to open the door by hitting it with my body, it didn't budge. Desperately, I continued to pound on the door. "Open up! This isn't funny! Please, open the door!" Then, from the other side of the door, "Are you okay?" My mobile phone rang the next morning. It was a call from my husband. "Yes, what do you want?" I answered coldly. Opposite to me, my husband sounded terribly panicked on the phone. "Hey, Kate, where are you? I thought for sure you were—" He yelled incoherently. His panic was understandable. There were ambulances and police cars parked at his family's home. Seeing this, I too became curious about what had happened. "Just come quickly!" He shouted at me and hung up one-sidedly. As I headed to his family home, thinking how his inability to listen to others ran in the family. My husband was shocked when I appeared just a few minutes after the call. "Where have you been until now? It's her! She's the one who locked Mom in!" While wondering what he was talking about, I saw my parents-in-law glaring at me. Elizabeth was wrapped in a blanket, shivering, perhaps from the cold. What's this situation? And what happened to this lady? One of the police officers approached me and asked, "Your family claims you locked her in. Is that true?" Apparently, Elizabeth had been locked in the bathroom all night by someone. This morning, Daniel, unaware of anything, found Elizabeth, cold, and called an ambulance in a panic. The police were also called, suspecting foul play, and the real culprit was framing me. No, that's not true. I was locked outside in the bathhouse by that person yesterday. Plus, doing something as inhumane as locking someone in is not something I would do. I said this, pointing at Elizabeth. Then, as if he had reached his limit, my husband broke down crying. "It's not like that! I thought it was Kate, and I just wanted to teach her a lesson." Last night, seeing the bathroom light on, my husband assumed I had gotten out of the bathhouse on my own. He locked the door from outside as a punishment, but it was Elizabeth inside. Unaware, he quickly returned to bed and fell asleep. Elizabeth must have panicked after being locked in. But Daniel and my husband are such heavy sleepers. Once asleep, they hardly wake up. Waking up and mistakenly thinking I had locked her in, Daniel, along with the police, was panicking. He didn't realize he was the real culprit. Hearing the story, my parents-in-law, fearing their son's arrest, continued to blame me. Then, from behind me, "This young lady was at our house all night. That mean woman locked her outside, and she was crying. Poor thing." An elderly couple spoke up. They had helped me yesterday. They asked me if I was okay, and then the door quietly opened. The elderly man looked at me with concern and said, "Come to our house. It's cold here. Let's make some warm drinks," inviting me to their home next to my husband's family home. I couldn't stop my tears of gratitude. Once I calmed down and told them what my husband's family had done, the couple was outraged and said, "We were worried about you since we saw you in the summer. This family is crazy. You should leave him." I had already decided to do so. I could have lost my life in this incident. Continuing as his wife was impossible. I charged my mobile phone at their house. After hearing from the elderly couple, the police seemed to understand the situation and said, "Please tell us your side," looking coldly at my husband's family. "What? You mean you guys trespassed on our property, right? I'll sue you. Be ready." Daniel was so bitter, even towards the elderly couple, opposite to the raging parents-in-law. "Is that so? Then we will also sue. You have been entering our garden when we are not around and stealing our roses every year. It's all on the security cameras. You have trampled our flower beds, and we have had enough." Hearing the man's words, my parents-in-law immediately quieted down. "Kate, I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry. Please." Elizabeth pleaded tearfully, but of course, I couldn't forgive her. "Elizabeth, you once said that there are no dirty thieves around here, yet I was almost killed because of your ridiculous educational complex. I will never come here again. And as for your stupid son, I'm returning him right now." I said this to my husband's family. My husband was crying and apologizing, but there was no way I could forgive him. I returned to my parents' house, and against my stubborn husband's refusal to divorce, I said, "I'll settle this incident on the condition of divorce. If you don't understand, consult a lawyer." Reluctantly, the police agreed to the divorce. I wanted to divorce him as soon as possible. I haven't seen my ex-husband since. Years later, surrounded by my new husband and adorable daughter, I live a peaceful life. Despite everything, I wonder if those hardships led to my current happiness. As we watch the morning news, I spit out my coffee in surprise. Please look at the footage of the record-breaking hurricane. This house has been completely destroyed, roof and all. More than the announcer broadcasting live, I was drawn to the building and the people in the background. It was unmistakably my ex-husband's family home, with an older-looking ex-parents-in-law desperately holding onto the walls. The elderly couple next door might have moved out. Their house was demolished and turned into an empty lot. Worried about my reaction, my current husband and daughter asked if I was okay, and I just laughed. It's nothing.
Building your own home is a huge milestone in life. This is a story about how my marriage collapsed after achieving this dream. I am Adeline, 30 years old. My family includes my 35-year-old husband, Yuri, and our 3-year-old daughter, Sarah. We are going to build a house of our dreams. When I told this to my family, I hoped they would believe in me, that it would be smooth sailing. But that was not the case. That's how it works with other people, maybe, but not me. I have been having endless problems lately with getting the house built, and my in-laws keep getting in the way. It all started to fall apart one day when I left my daughter at my in-laws' house. Yuri and I are always working and barely have any time together during the week. We spend most of our times on the weekend touring properties and consulting with home designers. When we took our daughter with us, she would get bored and become restless, so we always left her with my parents, who lived nearby. One morning, however, they informed me that they could not take care of Sarah because my father was not feeling well and had to go to the hospital. No choice, I thought. We have to cancel our plans for the day. I thought so. But then my husband said to me, "Why don't you just ask my parents to take care of her?" I was honestly concerned that my husband and I were about to have a conflict. To be honest, I don't get along well with my in-laws. My in-laws are the kind of people who think once you're a family, they can treat you however they want. Since when did that become the norm? Besides, I didn't want to impose on them taking care of a 3-year-old child with barely any notice. But if I put off my plans for a day, then progress on the house would be delayed. After much deliberation, I decided to leave my daughter with my in-laws. As soon as I finished my errands, I bought some expensive sweets and souvenirs and headed straight for my in-laws' house. Perhaps because I came bearing gifts, my in-laws were in good spirits and accepted my gifts. We thanked them politely and left, but on the way home, I heard my daughter talking. "I'm going to buy a new house." Then she asked, "Where will Grandma and Grandpa's rooms be in the new house?" Uh-oh. "Sarah, what are you talking about? Did Grandma and Grandpa ask you where their rooms were? And what did you say?" "I don't know." My daughter looked down at the stuffed penguin she held in her arms like she didn't want to talk anymore. I told her, "Honey, Grandma and Grandpa aren't coming to live with our family." Maybe Grandma and Grandpa were wondering if we had a room that they could stay in when they came to our house. That must have been the case. She must have gotten confused. Ever since that day, my in-laws began coming to visit more often, even on weeknights and holidays if we were home. My family is currently in a small, old apartment in order to save money to buy a house. Whenever my in-laws drop by, they settle down in the dining room or on the sofa and ask to see the documents of the house that we're building. And before I can stop them, my husband happily pulls out the documents and all the plans and starts explaining them to my in-laws. Why do you have to show them every time they ask? He looked at me in a way that made me feel bad. But then my mother-in-law would keep asking me questions. It was like an interrogation, except it wasn't my husband enduring the crossfire of questions. It was me. My mother-in-law, like the judge shouting out at me on the stand. "This drawing shows the location of the kitchen, but it's not very convenient here. Please change it. There are not enough Japanese-style rooms, so please make more. Everyone feels at home in a Japanese-style room when they get older. Besides, One child's room is not enough if you should have another child. What on earth do you think about the declining birth rate? Well, not that last part. Of course, she didn't give a damn about the declining birth rate. She was waiting for my response. Adeline, well, based on the conversations we've already had as a couple, we've already laid down the foundation work with our contractor based on our family's needs. Please understand that it is already too late to change the layout, I replied, somewhat angrily. Then what about the furniture? What about appliances? She asked me in depth. My mother-in-law is a self-proclaimed interior designer. I have many friends, and I have visited many houses and looked at many rooms. With my discerning eye, I can easily tell which rooms are comfortable and which are furnished with good taste. This house, this room is not good at all. Luck is running away, and even work is not going well. It's a disaster. How can you call yourself a professional? You're just a fly buzzing around where you don't belong. My mother-in-law was being so nosy that I jokingly said to her, then shall we make it a 2-family house and split the cost 50-50 since you have so much input? But that infuriated her. You want me to give money to our son and daughter-in-law? You're a gold digger. A 2-family house. Ha! I've never heard such a thing. That day, my in-laws left early. Go home. Go home. You are not my parents. You are my in-laws, and I don't owe you anything. You act more like my boss than my in-laws. Later that night, after putting our daughter to bed, my husband spoke to me in an exasperated tone. My parents are trying to advise the best they can, so don't be too cold to them. I don't mean to be cold, but they interfere in every detail about our house. They always try to corner us. They think we're their puppets and make fun of us. It's normal. They're our parents. You are a parent. Think of how you would feel if it were your daughter. You are a woman who doesn't always show compassion. You need to cool down and think about what you're doing. My husband turned his back on me and would not open his mouth again. Of course they're parents. Your parents. But just because they're your parents doesn't make them a part of our family. It's not like we receive any financial support from them. They don't help us pay the bills, so they don't get an opinion. My husband told me to cool down, but instead of cooling down, I was so angry at his unreasonable attitude that I could hardly sleep that night. Soon after that, the house was finally completed. My family was very excited when we moved in and started living in our new house. But my husband came to me and said, my parents are moving in with us today, so there should be no problem that they occupy the larger room on the 2nd floor and we can take the smaller one. Wait a minute! What the hell are you talking about? We agreed that one of the rooms on the 2nd floor would be Sarah's. I didn't hear anything about living together. I didn't hear anything about any of this. Besides, your mother might not even like that room. She will. I've already shown them the room, so don't worry. I've already shown them, so don't worry. Your parents saw the room? When? The day before we went to see the house. Wait a minute, let me get this straight. Your parents came to see the house before we did? That's right. They said they wanted to see the house, so I lent them my key. It's okay to look at it. It doesn't hurt anything. My husband said in a tedious manner, as if the conversation was over, and returned to wiring the TV set he was in the middle of installing. It doesn't hurt anything? Oh, yes, it does, and big time, too. I didn't want to see my husband's face, so I left the kitchen unpacked and went upstairs. I closed the door and locked it. I needed to clear my head, which had become a mess of confusion and anger. I was really glad that I had left Sarah at daycare because I had to clean up so much moving stuff. I was thankful for the distraction. I was completely fed up with my husband and in-laws because of their sudden announcement that they were moving in with us. I don't want to be with them even for a second more. However, my husband and I just made a big purchase, a house. I had to stay calm and collected. Think about what you are allowed to say and what you are not allowed to say for my daughters and my future. I remained in my room thinking about what I should say and waiting for my in-laws to arrive. Just as my husband had said, they arrived in the early afternoon with a truck loaded with their belongings. They should at least welcome us. They have no common sense at all. Oh my God, you haven't even cleaned up the mess yet. You're such a waste of space. After a lot of complaining, my in-laws entered our newly built house as if it was their right to do so. I listened attentively to what was going on upstairs, and then I went out of the room and headed for the front door. I wasn't told that we were going to be living with you too. My first words of resignation were surprisingly cold. My father-in-law, perhaps annoyed by this, was quick to blame me. I told Yuri. It shouldn't be a problem, should it? But it is a problem. It was only this morning that I heard from Yuri that he invited his parents to come live with us, and I have absolutely no intention of living with the two of you, with such rude people. What? Yuri said it's fine. You think you can go against your husband even though you are his wife? Yes, I do. You think I'm a brazen wife, do you? If you don't like it, why don't you just leave? I knew it was no good. I've been thinking this for a long time, but the way of thinking is so different that I can't have a conversation with these people. As I remained silent, thinking about how to fight back, my husband flew in with a panicked look on his face. What are you doing, Adeline? Don't fight with my parents. Fighting? It's not like we are equals. I was being unilaterally abused just because I was his wife. And now my husband is blaming me again? I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Yuri, I can't live with your parents. Don't embarrass me. You are my wife, so you're supposed to obey me, your husband. I am a human being before I am your wife. Do you think that you can force me to obey you? My father-in-law, who was listening to our conversation, said, I don't want that kind of wife for you. I don't want that kind of wife in my house, he shouted loudly. Then my husband said, being my wife comes first. If you can't take care of my parents, we might as well get a divorce. I agree with my father. I understand. Then let's get a divorce, I said it, loud and clear. Here was my husband initiating a divorce, and I, his wife, was agreeing to it. I prayed that the smartphone in my pocket was recording this exchange. I continued on, inwardly praying. Since we will separate and soon be no more than strangers, then please immediately return $259,778.88 that I loaned Yuri for the construction of the house. What? My in-laws shouted in astonishment. My husband lost his color and looked at me, his face white as a sheet. I explained the situation to my in-laws, who had no idea what was going on, in a very detailed manner. There seems to be some kind of misunderstanding, but Yuri did not pay a penny for the house. This house was built with only my savings. This is because he had no savings at all, as if he had no planning skills. Since we both worked and split the bills equally between us, we agreed to save the remainder in each of our accounts. But this person was wasting money and not putting anything into savings. Oh, come on, Adeline. You can't go there. It's all true. But when it came time to buy a house, he refused to budge. He wanted the house to be in my name. That's why I lent you the money, didn't I? I have an IOU, so you can't pretend it never happened. Oh, no. Leaving my husband and in-laws stunned, I quickly packed my suitcase and overnight bag full of my valuables, clothes, and my daughter's favorite toys. I made sure not to forget my daughter's favorite penguin under my arm. I loaded them into my own Mini Cooper and quickly started the car. I said goodbye to the new house I had known so briefly. Then I picked up my daughter from daycare and headed for my parents' house. My parents were quite surprised to see me show up out of the blue, dressed in sweatpants and carrying a large amount of luggage. If it's too urgent or inconvenient, I can go to a business hotel, I said with reserve. Then my parents hurried to stop me before I could turn around and leave. I thought maybe they were just worried that I would be taking their granddaughter along with me. In fact, the opposite was true. They had sworn to protect me at all costs. Anyway, I told my parents about the situation. I told them that I was leaving my husband, who had not a single good thing to say about me, and that I wanted to take my daughter and raise her. They promised to cooperate with me fully. They also told me to live at home for a while. This was a very generous offer as I was working. I spent that evening compiling and documenting everything that had happened so far with my husband and in-laws. I also saved the audio data of my conversations with my husband and in-laws, which I had recorded on my phone, to my computer and external media. With these in hand, I visited several lawyers' offices, taking full advantage of my paid time and weekends. Finally, I found a lawyer whom I felt I could trust, and I sent him a formal request. I was doing so much that a week passed in the blink of an eye since that day when I ran out of my beautiful new house. When I left the office after work that day, there was someone waiting for me. It was my husband. I would like to say that he was my ex-husband, but unfortunately, until the divorce was settled, he was still my husband for all intents and purposes. I had nothing to say to my husband, but I was afraid that he would get upset and do something to me. So we went into a coffee shop together, looking for a place where we could be seen. I remembered to turn on the recording function on my phone just in case. I asked my husband as calmly as I could, "Is there something you want to talk about?" "Yes, that's it. That house, I'm going to give it to you, Adeline. I'll remove my name from the lease. Can't you just forget about the money?" "I'm sorry, I can't live in that house anymore. Your father and mother stepped into that house before us, didn't they?" "What do you care about such details?" "It does matter to me, so I can't." With that, I took a sip of coffee and took a hard look at my soon-to-be ex-husband. His hair was a mess, with a few strands sticking out. He had stubble on his chin, and his complexion was not good. He was wearing a suit, but his shirt was shabby and looked like it hadn't been ironed or dry cleaned. I didn't know how he was getting on, but he looked tired and worn out. "Please, Adeline, I can't pay back such a large sum of money so easily." "You knew it was a lot of money, didn't you? I suggested that the house could be in both of our names, even though it was my house. My house, you were the one who didn't back down." "I thought I would be more like a landlord, and I didn't know you were serious about the divorce. I thought it was just a threat. I didn't know you would take it so seriously." "I am serious. I don't care if he's just not worth it, but I can't imagine such rude parents sticking together." "Oh no." Sarah is waiting for me, so if you're done talking, I'll leave. I'll leave when you're done. I'm going to take care of Sarah. My ex-husband's words made me feel uneasy. I went back to my parents' house and asked them to be careful, not to let anybody take Sarah by force. A few days after my ex-husband's visit, I received a call that a couple who looked like my in-laws at the daycare center were trying to pick up Sarah. I left early and rushed to the daycare center. Fortunately, I had informed the daycare center in advance, so they let my in-laws wait for me in a separate room. They did not let them see Sarah. When I entered the room with my in-laws, I was suddenly yelled at. "Give me back my grandchild, you thieving cat!" "What do you mean by thieving cat? I am not a thief." "If you are not a thief, you are a fraud. If you are not a thief, you are a swindler. Otherwise, there is no way I would have had that much money at your age." No, all the money I lent to Yuri was my own. It's what I got fair and square. It's a combination of my own money, my parents, and what my grandmother gave me as a gift before she died. A gift? That's right. Every year they deposited the amount of money that would not be subject to tax into an account in my name. That total, the money from the sale of the stock certificates in my name, and my savings that I had been saving, all added up. We can't believe it was really Adeline's money. You mean you didn't think to make a gift to our son before you died? You can do it now, can't you? My father-in-law let out a groan and fell silent. My in-laws are showy, vain, and love luxury more than anything else. They are an ordinary working-class family, and since they do not have unearned income, they do not have a lot of savings. It is obvious that he would never have thought of making a gift during his lifetime. I am sorry, but Yuri and I are getting a divorce. I will take Sarah in and raise her myself. Please don't come to the daycare center anymore, as it will be a nuisance. After saying this, I put Sarah in the car and quickly returned to my parents' house. Despite my warnings, Yuri and his parents continued to visit several times after that. Each time I tried to talk to them as calmly as possible to turn them away, but it was not uncommon for them to grab my arm or verbally abuse me. All of this was recorded on my phone. About a month after that day, when I ran out of our new house, I sent a text through my lawyer asking for repayment of the debt and an agreement to the divorce. My ex-husband generally agreed, but he was contentious about custody. However, when I told him that if he contested it, I would charge him alimony for the divorce, he threw a little salt. He became much more calm. After all that, I have a lot of evidence. And they have no savings to pay. It took some time, but I won repayment of the money owed to me by my ex-husband and custody of Sarah, a successful divorce. It took longer than I expected for him to pay it off, though. This is because the sale of our new house did not go as smoothly as I had hoped. At first, I thought Yuri and my in-laws were going to live in the new house, the three of them, but they did not. The reason is simple. Neither my parents-in-law nor my husband could afford the $260,000 that it would cost to purchase the house. My husband had no savings, and even if he had sold his parents' old house, it would not have been enough to pay for the new house. In the end, he put that newly built house on the market for less than he had paid for it, and after several price deductions, he finally found a buyer. The difference from the purchase price and the commission on the sale were borrowed by my husband from the bank. My husband, who had lost the house and was burdened with debt, had to live with his parents in a shabby house. Furthermore, Yuri's sister, who had also divorced, returned to the family with her two sons. The sons were a junior high school student and a high school student. Perhaps it is because 6 adults are crammed into a small, shabby house that they have a reputation in the neighborhood for cursing and yelling at each other every day. The family no longer bothered us. As long as they couldn't pay us enough child support, there was no way the courts would let them see us. 4 years have passed since then, and my daughter, Sarah, is now in the 2nd grade. We now live in a rented room near my parents' house. On days when I come home late, my parents take care of my daughter, and we enjoy spending our days together with the help of my parents. I was thinking that it would be good for the two of us to continue living together, just she and I, without getting remarried, but to my surprise, there is someone I am dating. He's a 36-year-old man who has been divorced and has a 1st-grade daughter. We often see each other when I drop her off and pick her up from daycare, and we start talking. One day he confessed his feelings for me. Recently, we have all been going out on play dates together, the 4 of us with our daughters. The other day, Sarah casually said, "If we were to build a house, it would be nice if all 4 of us had our own rooms and if we could have a dog." My heart was pounding in my chest. The man who had actually proposed to me a while ago. I have my daughter to take care of, and he is waiting for my answer, but my mind is made up. I walked up to Sarah, hugged her, and said, "Yes, I do. I want to build another house. This time, I want to discuss it with the whole family and make it a house where everyone can be happy."
Mommy, no! Mommy, go over there! The first time 4-year-old Ryan said those words to Layla was when I got into a fight with her. I couldn't believe my son would say something like that to his mother. When I asked Ryan why, I was shocked by what I heard. My name is Oliver, and I'm 30 years old. I work hard every day for a well-known company to support my family. My family consists of my loving wife Layla and our 4-year-old son, Ryan. Layla is a stay-at-home mom, juggling housework and childcare every day. Thanks to her, I can focus on my job, and I'm truly grateful for that. On weekends, we all go out together, maybe to the local park or shopping. I feel blessed to watch Ryan grow up alongside Layla. We've even managed to avoid the common mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts. My mom and Layla get along like best friends. They go to cafes together whenever they can, and my mom often helps take care of Ryan. Annie is buying Ryan some clothes next time. Great, I'll thank Mom for that. Life was good for us, free from any family disputes. But lately, something seemed off with Layla. Her usually bright expression seemed clouded. Concerned, I decided to check in with her. "Hey, Layla, you feeling okay these days?" Yeah, I think so. Why? Really? You just seem more down than usual." "I'm fine, really. Sorry to worry you." "Alright, if you say so." I couldn't press her any further as she forced a smile and insisted she was fine. But after years together, I knew something was up. Layla is hiding something. Even if something happened, I didn't want to ask any more persistently. I decided to keep an eye on things. Then one day, Layla approached me awkwardly when I got home from work. "Oliver, can we talk tonight after Ryan goes to bed?" "Sure, what's going on?" "I think I've reached my limit being alone with Ryan." "What?" Layla had never complained about childcare before, so for her to look so distressed about Ryan, I couldn't hide my surprise. "What do you mean you've reached your limit? What happened?" "Ryan's language has been really inappropriate lately." "Inappropriate language? Let's talk more tonight." Layla returned to making dinner, and the conversation was paused. Usually, this would be a time for cheerful conversation while preparing dinner with Ryan. After Ryan had gone to bed, I brought up the topic again. "So, what were you saying earlier? Is it hard being with him during the day?" "It's not that I don't like it. I said I've reached my limit. Every time Ryan uses bad language, I feel like crying. Maybe we should change his preschool." "Bad language? He's only 4. He probably doesn't even understand what he's saying. Isn't he just repeating words he's learned at preschool?" At this point, Layla's eyes filled with tears, and she raised her voice, holding back sobs. "Don't say that, Oliver! You're not home, so you don't know. Don't make assumptions without hearing it yourself." "But changing his preschool seems a bit extreme, don't you think?" Who around Ryan is saying things like, "I hate you," or "I don't love you"? He must have picked it up at preschool. We can't be sure. Maybe he heard it from a cartoon or something. You might not know this, but Ryan isn't interested in cartoons. I thought maybe a picture book. But what kind of children's book uses such alarming language? Seeing Layla so desperate was new to me, but changing preschools still seemed like an overreaction. With that in mind, I tried to comfort her. I get that you're worried, Layla, but maybe we can wait and see a bit longer. Are you serious? Ryan probably doesn't even understand what he's saying. That's exactly the problem. What if he starts using that language with his friends or adults? Well, I don't want Ryan to become that kind of child. You don't want that either, do you, Oliver? Just then, the living room door opened. There stood Ryan, looking sleepy. Ryan? Mommy? Daddy? What's going on? I'm no sleepy yet. We're going to bed soon, too, Ryan. Sorry. Did we wake you? Don't make such scary faces. Mommy and Daddy should be friends. Don't worry, Ryan. Everything's fine. As I was about to take the drowsy Ryan back to his room, he hurled unbelievable words at Layla. Mommy, no! What? Layla and I spoke simultaneously. Thinking I'd misheard, I cautiously asked Ryan again. Ryan, what did you just say? Mommy, no! Mommy, go away! Hey, Ryan! I hate you! Mommy, go away! Stop it! Apologize to Mommy right now! Ignoring me, Ryan continued to berate Layla. No! Go away! I hate you! All unbelievable words. Ryan, do you hate Mommy? Layla's voice trembled as she asked. Then Ryan said, I don't love you. So this is what Layla was talking about. As much as I didn't want to believe it, I had heard Ryan's harsh words with my own ears. Ryan, you can't say things like that. Apologize to Mommy. It's because Mommy is making a scary face. That doesn't make it okay. There are things you can and can't say. I didn't do anything wrong. Ryan? I turned around and saw Layla, holding back sobs. I'm sorry, Layla. I never thought it would come to this. See? You heard it too. Do you still think we should wait and see? Well, I can't take it anymore. I can't keep being told such things by Ryan. Layla grabbed a large bag, threw in her wallet and phone, and left the house. I wanted to go after her, but I couldn't leave Ryan alone. Reluctantly, I returned to the living room, where Ryan now looked like he was about to cry. Ryan, why the long face? If anyone should be crying, it's Daddy. But Mommy's gone. Where did Mommy go? Because you told Mommy I hate you and go away, she left. This is Mommy's home too, you know. You can't say things like that, okay? Ah! Ryan burst into tears, and honestly, I was lost. As I stood there speechless, Ryan sobbed out, I just wanted to make Mommy laugh. Laugh? No one would laugh at hearing I hate you or go away. Those are hurtful words. That's not true. What? When I say Mommy no, or Mommy I hate you, she's happy. Who? Who told you that would make someone happy? Well... The name that came out of Ryan's mouth hit me like a blunt object. It was my own mom. Mom usually doesn't use language like that, and she gets along well with Layla. She's always been supportive and often takes care of Ryan. On the other hand, there's no way Ryan, my and Layla's son, would lie about this. The moment I realized that, anger surged within me. Why? Why would she do something that could ruin my family? Weren't she and Layla supposed to be getting along? I won't let her ruin our family relationships. The next day, I called my parents home and explained the situation to Dad. So, that's what happened. Layla left because Ryan was using abusive language. Do you know anything about Mom's involvement? Let me think. After pondering for a moment, Dad suddenly exclaimed, Ah! I remember! I might have witnessed something like that. Tell me. According to Dad, when Layla was sick, they had asked Mom to pick up Ryan from preschool. Dad overheard their cheerful voices and decided to eavesdrop. He heard Ryan saying, Mommy, no! Mommy, I hate you! And Mom laughing loudly, saying, You're the best, Ryan. Say, Mommy, go away, next. Mommy, go away! Fantastic! Well done. Next, say, "Mommy, I don't love you." I don't love you! Good boy. This will surely cheer Mommy up. Unable to ignore it, Dad rushed into the room to stop Mom. "What are you teaching the kid?" Mom casually replied, "Oh, what's the big deal? We're just playing." At the same time, Dad didn't press the issue further. I see. Understanding the situation, I thanked Dad and immediately called Layla. "Hi." She answered in a weak voice, and I spoke gently. "Layla, I'm sorry for saying we should wait and see yesterday. You were right. Ryan learned those terrible words from someone." "I'm glad you understand. The misunderstanding is cleared up. Can you come home now?" "I can't handle this. I'm really shocked." "It's not what you think." "What?" "Ryan didn't want you to leave. He just wanted to make you smile." "Smile? How could I smile when he says things like that?" "I know. Remember the day we had that argument and we were both upset? Ryan wanted to see you smile again. That's the real story." "What are you talking about?" Confused, Layla listened as I told her the truth. It was my mom. "What?" "My mom taught Ryan those words." "That can't be true. Annie is so kind. We even planned to go to a cafe together next week." "I thought the same. That mom would never do something like that. But when I checked with Dad, he said he might have witnessed something similar." After hearing the whole truth, Layla sobbed over the phone. I was furious at my mom for hurting Layla, the woman I love. "Layla, I am really sorry. My mom caused you so much pain." "It's not your fault, Oliver. But if it's true, I can't forgive Annie." "I get it. I'll go talk to my mom tomorrow. What will you do?" In response, Layla answered firmly, "I'm coming with you. I need to know if it's really Annie." "All right. After I drop Ryan off at preschool tomorrow, I'll come pick you up. Text me the address where you're staying." "Okay." The next day, when Layla and I visited my parents' house, Mom looked deliberately concerned. "Oliver, what brings you here so suddenly? And Layla, you too?" "We have something important to discuss." "Important? Did something happen to Ryan?" "Yes, about that. We have a question for you, Mom." Caught off guard, Mom looked puzzled as I pressed her. "Did you teach Ryan to say, 'Mommy, I hate you,' and go away?" "What are you talking about? I would never say." "Ryan said those words to Layla. When we asked him who taught him, he said it was you." "I don't know what you're talking about." "But I said I don't know." As Mom stubbornly refused to admit it, Dad spoke up. "You did teach him those words, didn't you? When you were looking after him." "No, I didn't." "I remember clearly. I tried to convince myself I'd heard wrong, but after hearing Oliver's story, I knew I couldn't let it go." "You too? Why are you making me out to be the bad guy? She's the one at fault." Mom pointed at Layla, glaring at her. Layla responded firmly. "If I've done something to offend you, I apologize. But please stop teaching Ryan those words." "That's it. I've always hated your goody two-shoes act." "What?" Not just Layla, but Dad and I were also stunned by Mom's sudden change. In the silence that followed, Mom continued to shout. "I've hated you from the start. I was just playing the part of a good mother-in-law." "But we were so close." "That's what you thought. Being around you always made me angry. You're the devil who stole my precious Oliver. I was so angry, I used Ryan to corner you." "That can't be true." "Ugh, just imagining the look on your face when your own son says something like that to you. It was so satisfying. You deserve this punishment for stealing Oliver from me, you bitch." At that moment, I felt my anger reach its peak. I'll never forgive her for hurting my precious Layla. "Enough is enough!" Just as I was about to yell at Mom, "Are you kidding me, you old witch?" The one who raised her voice was none other than Layla. You, Layla." Layla, looking furious, confronted Mom. "If you have a problem with me, say it to my face. Don't involve little Ryan. He's going to grow up and learn from various experiences, and he won't turn out well with someone like you around." I had never seen this side of her before. Layla continued to plead with Mom, her hair disheveled and tears in her eyes. I'll never let you see Ryan again. I don't care what you think of me, but involving Ryan is unforgivable. Stay away from him, you awful old witch. With that, Layla quickly left my parents' house. Dad told me to go after her, snapping me back to reality. I followed Layla and comforted her as we headed home together. After we left, Dad apparently scolded Mom and urged her to apologize to Layla. But Mom kept insisting it was all Layla's fault. Fed up, Dad brought up divorce, and Mom suddenly panicked, but it was too late. "I never thought you were this kind of person," he said, leaving her. I can't even imagine how Mom will manage from now on, but it's not my concern anymore. Honestly, I just want them to do whatever they want, no matter what kind of life they have. Layla and I haven't seen Mom since, and we don't want to. Layla has completely rejected her. For Ryan's sake, it's better that we never see her again. As for Ryan, as time passed, he stopped using those terrible words. When Layla is down, he finds other ways to cheer her up. "Mommy, smile!" "Ryan, I love you, Mommy." "Mommy loves you too." "Thank you, Ryan." Finally, our peaceful daily life has returned. From now on, I want to live happily ever after, protecting the smiles of my beloved Layla and Ryan.
I'm Karen, 27 years old. My husband Steven is the same age, and we got married last year. We both work full-time. I'm a nurse and Steven is in pharmaceutical sales. We met at a happy hour event organized by a co-worker. I love a good drink, so that evening, the after-work cocktails tasted especially good. We had crossed paths before, but that night was the first time we really talked. Our drink preferences clicked and we hit it off. Every time we met, it was fun and comfortable. So it didn't take long for us to start dating. On my birthday, Steven confessed his feelings and we officially became a couple. Our favorite dates involve finding hidden gems that serve great drinks. I love wine while Steven is into sake. Our differing tastes actually make it fun as we get to teach each other new things. As our relationship progressed, I started thinking about marriage. That's when I learned about Steven's background. His parents divorced when he was young, and he never knew his father. He was raised by a single mom, and they're very close. Steven has never moved out of his family home. Is that a flaw, or does it show how much he values family? I tend to get blinded by love, and back then I saw it as a positive trait. Steven is kind and incredibly handsome. I couldn't find any flaws. I felt so lucky to marry the perfect man that it scared me. I had no idea that a terrifying married life awaited me. Before the wedding, I often dined with my mother-in-law. She would always tell Steven, "Karen is like a daughter to me. Don't let her get away. Marry her soon." I always told Steven I felt happy hearing this and looked forward to becoming family. Steven, who's great with people, also had a stellar reputation with my parents. Everything went smoothly and we got married. Neither of us likes being the center of attention, so we didn't have a big wedding. After the wedding, Steven moved out of his family home for the first time. However, concerned about his mom, we chose an apartment just a 10-minute walk from his family home. In hindsight, that was a mistake, but it's too little, too late now. My mother-in-law, who used to treat me like a daughter, changed after the wedding. She started treating me like a mortal enemy and began visiting daily. I gently told Steven, "I appreciate that your mom visits every day, but it's hard for me to relax. Could you ask her to come less often on work days?" Steven responded,
"Why? We're family now. Mom gets lonely. She loves to talk and hates being alone. I wish you would be more understanding. This is my home too, and I can't tell her something I don't believe. If you have something to say it yourself. I won't."
Steven doesn't accept my opinion. I was surprised by his unexpected response. From that day on, Steven would get moody whenever I mentioned anything about his mother. I started to hold back to avoid arguments. My mother-in-law took advantage of this. Before I knew it, Steven had given her a spare key. One day, I came home to find mother-in-law cooking in our kitchen without asking. I was shocked to find her in my space, so my tone got a bit sharp. "What are you doing, mother-in-law? You can't just come in here without asking." Mother-in-law shot back, "What's going on with your fridge? It's practically empty." I have never seen such a lifeless fridge. Do you even cook? Don't tell me you're always buying deli items. I couldn't hold back anymore. I shop for fresh ingredients daily. I've heard your fridge is always packed like a traffic jam. It's impressive you can manage that. I just bought ingredients today. Sure, we have deli days, but I also cook to save money. And by the way, deli food these days is pretty good. Don't you ever try it? Mother-in-law wasn't backing down. Oh, listen to you. I would rather not have Steven eat food when we don't even know who made it. This is what happens when he marries an incompetent wife. I should have taught him to be more discerning about women. Sparks were flying between us. Once I started airing my grievances, I couldn't stop. Do you see the shopping bag, mother-in-law? There's not a single deli item in it. I am busy, so could you please not get in my way? You're not even a guest anymore since you let yourself in. Mother-in-law stormed out, her face red. I'll tell Steven about this. I had more to say, but she left. I knew I was in the right, although it made me uncomfortable. I wasn't wrong. I shook off the bad vibes and started cooking pot roast. Then Steven came home, his face a splitting image of his angry mom.
What did you say to Mom? She called me crying. How could you be so cruel when she was just trying to help because you're busy?
I was baffled. First off, breaking into someone's home isn't a surprise. And if it is, then burglars should be forgiven if they call it a surprise, right? This happened because you gave her a spare key. She could have come when one of us was home. It's not only unnecessary but also intrusive. What about my privacy? I have no intention of apologizing. Steven looked shocked and one word.
Please, can you two just get along?
He retreated to his room without eating dinner. I hoped this fight would make him more considerate. For the next 2 days, we barely spoke. I couldn't stand the tension, so I brought it up. What do you want to do going forward? I don't want a relationship where we don't communicate. Let's talk. Steven finally said,
Mom's remorseful. She was crying yesterday. Worried you would never forgive her. The root cause was me giving her the spare key. I'm sorry, Karen.
I didn't care about mother-in-law. As long as Steven understood, that was enough. My weakness showed and I forgave him. Even though I know in the back of my mind, my fault is that I forgive it. Steven immediately called mother-in-law. She came running, happy to be summoned. I had a bad feeling, but I was tired of fighting. If she would change her ways, fine. As soon as mother-in-law saw my face, it was as if a switch had been turned on. Oh, I'm so relieved. I thought Karen would never speak to me again. I know I overstepped and I promised never to do it again. Mother-in-law started talking in a voice as sweet as if she were talking to a cat. For some reason, I just have a bad feeling about it. She then pulled out a mysterious bag from her purse. I met an old friend from college yesterday. She's unbelievably youthful and beautiful. She gave me some Chinese tea. That's her beauty secret. I thought I'd share some with you, not that you need it. I had a bad feeling, but felt awkward refusing.
Steven whispered, just have 1 cup of tea with her. I'll make sure she leaves as soon as possible.
So, wanting her gone, I agreed to drink the tea. I have always enjoyed Chinese tea and it's popular at my workplace too. Mother-in-law quickly poured hot water into the tea pack. This tea is supposed to be good for your skin and boost female hormones. You guys are thinking about having kids soon, right? If you like it, I'll tell my friend to get some for you, she said, placing the cup in front of me. The aroma was a bit unusual, but I took a sip anyway. It tasted strange, but I downed it, thinking it was just a new flavor. However, my bad feeling came true. I woke up in the middle of the night with stomach pain, feeling half faint. By the time I felt better, it was already morning. There was no doubt about it. The only thing I had consumed that Steven hadn't was the suspicious Chinese tea. I told Steven about it, but he didn't take me seriously.
Karen, that's a terrible accusation. Mom brought that tea to make amends. You're making it sound like she poisoned you. Don't you feel ashamed? It's probably just an upset stomach. Mom would never do something like that.
Steven wouldn't believe that I was being malicious, but without evidence, I couldn't press the issue. Still, I have been wary of anything from mother-in-law since then. Just before Steven's birthday, mother-in-law called. Karen, I'm cooking for Steven's birthday. You can come or not, it's up to you. You're busy, right? Maybe you should take some time to refresh yourself. She was planning to celebrate Steven's birthday without me. I have been scared to eat anything from her since that day. And homemade food was out of the question. But I was planning to spend Steven's birthday together, so I felt upset. I thought we would spend his birthday together since we are newlyweds. I assume you have celebrated with him every year until now, so from now on, it's my turn. Before I could finish, she cut me off. Anyway, I want Steven to come home. You don't have to come, Karen. We can celebrate your birthday next month, okay? I decided to leave the decision to Steven. That night, he said,
Did you hear? You're free to do whatever you want that day.
he chose mother-in-law over me without hesitation, and I was getting fed up. On Steven's birthday, he was in high spirits, and it made me feel sick. My feelings for him started to wane. He seemed to enjoy celebrating with just his mom becoming more of a mama's boy, and they started dining out together more frequently. I'm busy with work and can't focus on that all the time. A month flew by and it was my birthday. We usually celebrated at our favorite restaurant. I assumed this year would be the same, but Steven surprised me.
Mom wants to celebrate your birthday with us. She would be happiest if you two got along.
I was so shocked I froze. Steven, still in high spirits, didn't notice. I said, I wanted to celebrate just with you, Steven. We weren't together on your birthday, so let's spend mine together. For some reason, Steven thought I was being polite.
No, you don't have to hold back. Mom offered, so it's fine.
He just didn't get it. I had no choice but to be firm. Steven, no offense to mother-in-law, but I want to spend my birthday just with you. I want to go to our special restaurant. Then Steven suddenly got angry.
Don't waste Mom's kindness. You're heartless. Why haven't you noticed that Mom didn't invite you to my birthday? Just do as I say.
It's already a hassle. I was done arguing. And then came my birthday. Instead of a restaurant, we were at home, and of course, mother-in-law was there. Neither of them seemed interested in my low spirits. I started to get angry as I saw them enjoying themselves in the kitchen. Then the lights went out and the cake came in. I was angry, but the cake helped me cool down a bit. Before blowing out the candles, mother-in-law announced she had a gift. I bought a wine worth $5,000 for your birthday celebration. Let me uncork it right away. The packaging looked worn and the cork was crumbling. Is this what they call vintage? Mother-in-law poured a generous amount of wine into my glass. Even in the dim light, I could see the wine was cloudy. Memories of the Chinese tea incident came flooding back. I took a small sip. What is this? I spat it out immediately and turned on the lights. I turned the bottle of mother-in-law's so-called $5,000 wine upside down in the kitchen sink. Wine flowed down the drain. Steven quickly grabbed the bottle from me.
You're terrible. Apologize to Mom. What do you think you're doing?
I saw what it meant to have a face filled with anger. Steven was glaring at me. I poured wine into the glass Steven was holding. Can you drink this then? Steven looked puzzled but stubborn. He took a sip. At that moment, mother-in-law shouted, Steven, don't drink it! Too little, too late. He spat it out immediately.
What the heck is this?
Mother-in-law took the wine away from Steven. A shocked Steven asked,
Mom, where did you buy this wine? We need to file a complaint. This is fraud. It's spoiled.
Mother-in-law looked guilty and said, that wine was just sitting in the back of our kitchen. It's 50 years old. I heard on TV that it gains $1,000 in value every year. Vintage wines are properly stored in wine coolers. Upon closer inspection, the cork was more damaged than I thought. It was cloudy and smelled like mold. Even Steven couldn't hide his surprise. What bothered me was mother-in-law's don't drink it. I suspect she knew it was spoiled, but she would never admit it. I couldn't forgive mother-in-law for this. Can you please leave? I can't keep my composure. Just get out of my sight. Even as I said this, mother-in-law kept making excuses to Steven. I felt invisible. But even mother-in-law, clearly uncomfortable, made a hasty exit. After she left, Steven said something unexpected.
Mom doesn't drink, so she wouldn't know. Good thing we didn't give it to anyone else.
Even after all this, Steven defended mother-in-law as if it were an accident? At that moment, my feelings for him cooled. My resolve solidified against Steven, who defended mother-in-law despite what she had done to me. I had been turning a blind eye to his excessive attachment to his mom. I want a divorce now. I presented Steven with divorce papers I had kept just in case. He was speechless. When he asked why, I said, ask yourself, do you know how much I have put up with? I have reached my limit. Then without asking, on top of that, He deeply apologized, saying,
I won't do it again. You're the one for me.
he started confessing to multiple affairs. I had suspected infidelity, but I was shocked to hear about 4 different women. I had no more doubts. I decided to divorce him. There was no need for a private investigator. Evidence of his affairs was plentiful. During our discussion, he suddenly blurted out,
You'll regret divorcing a cool guy like me.
Stephen says like a fool. I was disgusted at my own foolishness for ever loving such a man. Multiple affairs and being a mama's boy were more than enough reasons for divorce. To avoid complications, I decided to hire a lawyer, even if it would be expensive. Stephen initially resisted the divorce, but eventually gave in, perhaps realizing the extent of his mistakes. He went back to his beloved mom. Later, it was revealed that his affair was with a co-worker and he was demoted as a result. Unable to be away from his mother, Stephen quit his job. He is apparently job hunting, but rumors spread fast. He can't find a job in the same field because his workplace affair became public. Still, unable to separate from his mother, he ended up working part-time. Given his arrogant and unreliable nature, it's unlikely he will keep the job for long. I need him to work steadily to pay me alimony. For now, the payments are coming in without issue, so let's call it good. I later found out that mother-in-law, who had acted so high and mighty, was a hoarder. Stephen's family home was literally a trash place. No wonder they never wanted me over. Eventually, the Stens became a nuisance to the neighbors and the police had to intervene. The thought of drinking wine from that house still makes me sick. Stephen can live in his trash place and work his random part-time jobs with his beloved mother-in-law for all I care. I may have returned to my old life, but I'm happier just not being tormented every day. Stephen won't be coming to my workplace anymore, so that's a relief. In hindsight, Stephen had good looks but nothing else. The fact that he's making the alimony payments is a plus, I guess. Breaking up made me realize this: love is indeed blind. I have learned my lesson this time. I'm putting romance on hold for a while. I want to focus on my career.
Zoe got into an accident. She needs rehab, so she'll be in the hospital for about a month. So I'm going to need $10,000 for her medical bills. Mom-in-law, that money is set aside for expenses. We can't just use it without planning. Do you have a problem with helping out? We're family, aren't we? Even if we're not related by blood, you should be willing to support us. Funny how the word family only comes up in times like this. Well, if Zoe is injured, maybe it can't be helped. Just when I was giving in to the idea, a game-changing phone call comes in. My name is Sophia, and my family runs a farm. My brother has taken over the family business, so I work at another company. Still, I help out during busy seasons by taking some time off work. My job allows for remote work, giving me flexibility. The company was supportive when I told them I'd occasionally need time to help my dad, which was very helpful. So I was making a decent income and had some financial leeway. I married Oliver when I was 25. He has a really kind personality, and I fell for him quickly. I thought his parents must be nice people too, but it turns out I was totally wrong. By the time Oliver and I met, his dad had already passed away, so he lived with just his mom and his sister Zoe, who seemed to rule over him. Both women visit quite frequently since we got married. I initially thought they were being considerate, but that wasn't the case. Sophia, what's for dinner tonight? I was thinking of making vegetable soup since we had meatloaf yesterday. That won't do. Oliver is still growing. He needs more meat. But he's already 35. We have to start thinking about his health. As we are talking, Zoe heads for the kitchen. Mom, look! Vegetable soup? Ew! It's all vegetables. And the seasoning is bland. This must be because Oliver married a farmer's daughter. Poor guy. Zoe opens the pot and starts tasting the soup. The seasoning is too bland? Let me add some salt. Then it will taste better. She proceeds to pour a ton of salt into the pot. I was so stunned. I couldn't move. Mom, you put in way too much salt. Now it's too spicy to eat. Oops, my bad. Guess we'll have to make it all over again. Oliver will be home soon, so we need to hurry. Well, you're home all day, so it shouldn't be a problem to remake it, right? You're free anyway, Sophia. True, let's head back home then. What's for dinner tonight?
How about vegetable soup?
That sounds fantastic. They leave the house, laughing. I stare at the oversalted soup, feeling heavy at the thought of starting all over. I use vegetables we grew ourselves, so it feels like a waste, like I've let my dad down. I also have a job. I'm not free. I manage my chores while squeezing them into my remote work schedule. They don't seem to get that. 30 minutes later, Oliver comes home from work. Dinner isn't ready. I apologize after welcoming him home. I'm sorry, Mom-in-law and Zoe came by earlier and dinner isn't ready yet.
They came again, huh? It's okay, I think we still have some instant ramen.
I'm really sorry. I'll buy some water for you. Oliver must have some idea what mother-in-law and Zoe are doing when they come to his house. But he doesn't seem to care at all. Probably can't stand up for himself. I get it. They're his family. But he should say something. That was my true feeling. I think Oliver is kind because he takes after his father, not his mother. That's my only issue. He helps around the house even though he's tired from work and we go out on his days off. I thought I should just endure it. Then something amazing happened. Our daughter Emma was born. It's hard, but with the help of my mom and others, Emma is growing well. But ever since Emma was born, his mom and sister Zoe visit more often. Hi, Emma. How are you? It's Grandma. I'm good. You're good at saying hello. Here's something for being so good. She hands Emma an expensive chocolate. I rush to stop her. Chocolate is too early for Emma, and please don't give her something so expensive. She can't eat it. What? You're going to reject a gift? How terrible. I won't bring anything again. It would be too late if something happened to Emma, so fine. Emma is unfortunate because she can't have chocolate due to her own mom. She's a kid. Let her have some fun. That's beside the point. What if Emma gets sick? Stop being so uptight. Let kids be kids. You're already confusing enough with your weird farming job.
Sophia, Mom, Zoe, stop it. Not in front of Emma, please.
Oliver finally speaks. Emma was anxiously watching us argue. I apologize, and she goes to another room. The situation has changed. It's not just about me enduring anymore. It could negatively affect Emma. I decide to avoid them as much as possible. I was managing somehow, but then disaster struck. Zoe had an accident and hurt her leg. According to his mom, it was a single vehicle accident. She needs rehab and will be in the hospital for a month. So I'll need $10,000 for the medical bills. She grabs the money we had saved from farm equipment. It's money we work hard to save for efficiency. That money is for the farm work, Mom. We can't afford to give it away. Farm work? More important than my daughter? We're family, aren't we? How can you say such a thing when Zoe is in trouble? I can't stand her invoking family only when it's convenient. Mom, what's going on? Emma comes over because of the raised voices. Oh, Emma, your mom is going to have Zoe, right, Sophia? Yes. Under the pressure, I nod. See you later, Emma. She leaves, satisfied. I sit down, defeated. Mom, are you okay? I'm okay, sweetie. Sorry for worrying you. I held Emma, looking anxious, and tried to soothe her. Spending this much money is hard, but it's for Zoe, so it's unavoidable. That's what I had to tell myself. But Mom-in-law's demands just kept escalating. Cook meals because caring for her is tough. do the laundry. She was asking for everything. When I tried to decline because of work, she'd say, "You're at home anyway, so what's the problem?" I felt both physically and emotionally drained. Do you want me to help? I can visit the hospital if you tell me where it is. No need. Zoe is my daughter. I can't impose on you. She kept asking for favors and taking money, but helping her was somehow imposing? Since the day of the accident, I haven't even seen Zoe.
What if I go see her? I can swing back after work.
You don't have to worry, Oliver. I'll take care of it. That's how she'd shut it down. Eventually, Oliver stopped asking about Zoe too.
Maybe Zoe needs her space. Mom's looking after her, so she's fine. If she needs something, she'll reach out.
That's the conclusion I settled on. If Oliver's not saying anything, it's not my place to dig deeper. The unexpressed stress kept piling up. Then one day, mother-in-law said she had something to do for Zoe and left alone. Usually either Oliver or I would go with her, but today she left alone. I was relieved and started cleaning the house. About an hour in, Oliver's phone rings. It's mother-in-law shopping. He's in the garage, so I consider picking up. Emma approaches. Hey, it's Grandma. Answer it quick. After saying that, the call abruptly ended. Panic. Oliver tried to signal that he was away from his desk but overheard a shocking conversation. I quickly opened my mobile phone and started a voice recorder app. After finishing the recording, I grabbed Emma's hand and we rushed back to my parents' house. Thankfully, it was nearby. Dad and Mom were surprised by the sudden visit, but there was no time to explain. We immediately reported the incident to the police and returned home. When we got back, my mother-in-law was just returning from shopping.
Sophia, what's going on? You seem frazzled. Where's Emma?
You really should calm down. Women who can't keep their cool aren't attractive. My mother-in-law casually sipped her coffee. I said nothing, and I started playing the recorded audio. Oh, it should be connecting, but I don't hear anything. Hello? Mom, you said we're out of toilet paper, right? Is this the kind we usually use? Thank you. That's the one. I'm trying to call Oliver, but no one is answering. Could Emma have accidentally pressed it? She's quite the tomboy. That could be. Maybe Emma will turn out like Sophia. I'd hate that. 2 doll farm girls? Should we trip one of them up a bit? Tell Sophia or Oliver to take her to the park and we can get her on the slide or the swing. I can't help but laugh imagining Sophia's troubled face. The two hung up, laughing. Both my mother-in-law and Oliver were pale as ghosts.
What is this? Is it Zoe was hospitalized? What did we just hear?
This is a ghost. Yes, a ghost. I'm worried about Zoe that I'm hearing things. You shouldn't be pushing me like this. So you're planning to hurt Emma based on hallucinations? You're the one who should be in the hospital. Oliver, say something.
Mom, where is Zoe?
For the first time ever, Oliver looked dead serious. My mother-in-law stayed silent.
If you won't speak, I'll have to search the house. And if I find Zoe...
Please, Oliver, believe me. Zoe really is in the hospital. I just didn't want to bother you with the details. You know it's serious if you're lying, right? We've also alerted the police. The police? My mother-in-law shouted. Of course. I can't ignore the potential threat to my daughter. Home affairs are not the police's business, they said, but this is not a joke. Oliver seemed to have understood.
So that's why you moved Emma. Thank you. Now we need to find Zoe.
Wait, Oliver. This recording is fake. Sophia is trying to trick us.
Enough of that. Sophia is clearly trying to protect our daughter. I trust Sophia. If you can tell me, I will call every nearby hospital to see if Zoe is there. If not, I'm filing a missing person report.
That's it? At that, my mother-in-law collapsed. It seemed the game was up. A few minutes later, Zoe arrived home. She was perfectly fine, with both feet intact. It's annoying that he keeps interfering with every little detail. I was living a good life.
You've been lying about being in the hospital to live off that money, haven't you?
Yeah, so what? We're family. You can spare $10,000, can't you? You'd be happy if your family was doing well, right? Are you really that stingy?
From this moment on, we're not family, Mom. Zoe, please, cut ties with us. I can't take this anymore.
What are you saying, Oliver? I approve of your marriage to Sophia for your happiness. I never wanted you to be with someone like this. I thought you could do better, but still.
Don't say another bad word about Sophia and Emma. Just leave. I never want to see you again.
Exactly, Mom. Let's hear what Emma thinks too. She's her daughter, and her opinion matters, right? Fine, fine. She's probably at Sophia's parents' house, right? I'll call her now, so listen up.
She starts dialing the home phone. She puts it on speaker so everyone can hear.
Hello?
Hi, Emma, it's Grandma. Can I talk to you for a second? Emma remains silent, but the mother-in-law continues.
You miss Grandma if I were gone, right? Your mom wants to cut me out. Say something, will you?
After a moment of silence, Emma speaks.
I don't like Grandma. Mom always looks sad because of you. Zoe talks bad about Mom, so I don't like her either.
Both the mother-in-law and Zoe are at a loss for words.
Given that, please leave now. If you stay, I'll call the police again.
The two of them leave the house, heads hung low. We immediately go to pick up Emma. I had been worried that maybe Emma didn't want to be separated from her grandmother. It's natural for a child to miss their grandparents. I thought we'd have to find another way. But Emma had been paying close attention to the actions of her grandmother and Zoe. And so, we decided to have nothing more to do with them. If they come close, we'll call the police immediately. We also plan to get back the money we gave Zoe for her medical expenses. I later heard that Zoe lost her job. She was constantly getting yelled at by her boss for her poor work attitude. It's easy to imagine from her daily behavior. They probably needed money because Zoe lost her income. Now, they're living off the mother-in-law's pension. But she's too old to work, and Zoe's attitude is so bad that she can't hold a job. I saw them stocking up on discounted potatoes at the supermarket the other day. They both looked a bit thinner and worn out, but it's their own fault. Both Dad and Mom were really worried after this incident. We hadn't consulted them much since getting married, not wanting to be a burden. Mom was planning to speak clearly when the mother-in-law called, but Emma beat her to it. She wanted to tell her grandmother directly, she said. Both Dad and Mom said they'll be there for us if anything happened, so we'll make sure to talk to them from now on. Emma, who we were most worried about, seemed surprisingly carefree. Maybe she was stressed by the mother-in-law and Zoe without us knowing. We've been busy with work and haven't gone out much lately, so we're planning a family trip to the amusement park during our next day off.
Hello, I'm Laura, a woman in my 30s. I've been through divorce and have no children. The reason for my divorce was how my ex-husband dealt with his sister-in-law's family. I'm sharing my story here to express my frustrations and to keep striving towards my dreams. When the issue first arose, my husband and I had been married for a year and a half. We had chosen not to have children. Why? Because I had dreams to pursue, and that required effort and saving money. I thought there'd be time for kids after achieving my dreams. My husband, his father, and his mother all understood and supported me. I grew up in a close-knit family with parents, a sister, and a brother. We always chat and have fun together. On the other hand, my husband's family kept to themselves and didn't interfere much in each other's lives. In fact, we'd only hear from his parents once every 2 months or so for a quick update. When we were dating, he respected my dreams and liked that I was family-oriented. Since his family seemed hands-off, I thought we'd manage well after marriage. But after we got married, my husband began inviting his sister and her kids over constantly. And then one day, my husband David said this: "My sister has 3 boys and it's tough for her. Help her out. Pick up the kids from preschool, make meals, and even give more gifts." Now, if his sister, a housewife, was busy, I could have understood. But her kids were a handful, and I simply didn't have the time since I also work. When I refused, my husband got angry out of nowhere. You pick up and feed your own sister's kids, don't you? They're both adorable nieces and nephews. Don't be discriminatory. It's true, I did pick up my niece. My sister was hospitalized for a few days because she fell ill at work while pregnant with her second child. My sister's husband couldn't make it to work, so I stepped in. During that time, my mother visited my sister and cleaned the house, while I picked up my niece from preschool and fed her until my brother-in-law could take over. He often came home exhausted, so I'd prepare simple meals, but that was an emergency because my sister was unwell. However, my husband just couldn't grasp this. Honestly, I wasn't keen on my sister-in-laws as kids, but I've never treated them differently from my niece during birthdays or Christmas. You took care of your niece, but you won't take care of your nephew? Taking care of my niece was different. She's my relative. Maybe you should handle your own sister's kid, especially since you're the one who wants to take this on. But I work late. Picking up the kid from preschool is out of the question, and let's not even talk about my cooking skills. Having my sister-in-laws as kids over was always a handful. My husband couldn't manage them all on his own. It was just too much. They'd run around, grab handfuls of cake, and fights would break out in a snap. Whenever I cooked, they'd complain it was gross and uneatable. Initially, we'd consult with my sister-in-law and her husband about gifts for the kids, buying them secretly. But at one point, she just asked for cash instead. Assuming she had her reasons, we went along, setting a certain amount to give her each time. Turns out, she was pocketing the money, and the kids started calling us stingy. I felt it was bold of her to take the money and still ask for more gifts. I didn't like these kids, who were neither polite nor careful with our things. And the fact that I was expected to be the primary caregiver was frustrating. You offered to help on your own, so you should take care of it alone. If you were helping with my niece, I would have helped with my nephew. But you never did, right? If you can't handle it, you shouldn't offer. And at the very least, you should consult me. Why are you so against taking care of them? Well, your nephew is a lot more destructive, okay? I don't want any more of my things ruined. It's different when it's a single niece versus 3 siblings close in age. Our discussion was going nowhere. We needed to cool off, and for my husband to understand my point of view. I packed up and went back to my parents' home. Divorce wasn't on my mind at that point. I was hoping for reconciliation if he could understand where I was coming from. Maybe it's wrong to favor my own blood-related niece, but back when my sister was pregnant with her, I was still single and living at home. She would come by and I'd get to feel her growing belly. I was genuinely happy for her, and I felt different about my nephew. Still, blood shouldn't be the only factor. I tried to treat them equally, but I could no longer tolerate my sister-in-law's audacity and my nephew's demanding nature. When I left, I sent an email suggesting we both take some time to cool off. But it seemed like my husband wasn't fully grasping the situation. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? My sister-in-law is not ill or anything, so why do I have to take over her responsibilities? I was not fond of my husband's attitude of assuming I'd naturally take over. I didn't reply to the email, but just kept a record of it. I visited my parents' house after a long time and went out for a meal with my parents and my college-aged brother, Daniel. I told them about what had happened and said I might get a divorce. They were understanding. Divorce doesn't affect your dreams, and experiencing it once might not be a bad thing. Why don't you stay here for a while and focus on your goals? I don't appreciate the entitlement from him, so why not divorce? Taking my father's advice, I decided to focus on achieving my dreams while staying at my parents' house. A few days later, another email came from my husband. If you don't come home, your precious music box might get destroyed when my sisters visit tomorrow. I had already taken all the stuff I bought myself, as well as gifts from parents, friends, and siblings. He didn't seem to realize that. The only thing left at home is what you gave me. After I replied, he seemed to get anxious and called me for the first time since I left. Your brother came over unannounced, played games when I wasn't home. He wanted me to admit I was wrong and come back. I explained that my brother came because he had free time, and he helped me with the game. It just so happened to be a day my husband was at work. I had paid for the gaming console, and the games were mine too. I hadn't inconvenienced him in any way. I won't return with that attitude. I'm doing just fine, and I don't want to meet your sisters or nephews because I don't like them. With those final words, I hung up the phone on my husband. I consulted my mother-in-law because my husband showed no remorse, only to learn that he and his sister weren't close in the past. Given that she got pregnant and married as a teen, leaving home early, it's kind of expected they didn't get along. Even my mother-in-law had no idea why they'd suddenly become close now. I had all my treasured music boxes with me, and I didn't care about the stuff my husband had given me. Ignoring his emails led to a photo of my broken music box arriving that night. I have all my important things with me. I'm not attached to anything you gave me, I replied. Days passed with no further development. My in-laws grew concerned with our silence and called my emergency cell phone. I explained that I was at my parents' home and told them why. Hearing that my parents-in-law was considering divorce, they made an emergency visit to my parents' house for a discussion. The talk involved parents-in-law, my husband and I, and my parents. It seemed that my husband had been staying over at sister-in-law's house instead of coming home. Sister-in-law, who doesn't do housework or childcare, seemed to find David bothersome and told him to call me and go home. My husband wanted to play the role of a dependable brother to his sister, but instead he felt discouraged by being treated as an annoyance. He told me it was unfair that I live close to my parents' house and get along with my siblings. Seeing you close with your family was painful for me, so I tried to be close with my sister. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, I've been uncomfortable too. Isn't that fair? You get along with your family, and that's not fair. So it's not fair unless my sister also gets treated better. Usually, in-laws on the husband's side get priority, right? But your family doesn't care about me. Your sister's husband is treated well, though. Everyone, including parents-in-law, was taken aback by my husband's logic. I sighed deeply, feeling utterly dismayed. It was clear that any remaining emotional connection I had with him had vanished. Being part of your happy sibling charade is exhausting. You say don't discriminate between nieces and nephews, but I've been trying to treat both the same. But being told not to favor one over the other is unrealistic. I'm human. I have likes and dislikes. To be honest, why should I love a child who's not even blood related and is ill-behaved? They break things, make a mess, are picky eaters, and constantly complain. And your sister only dictates what to feed them without bringing anything they can eat. There's no gratitude for taking care of them. And, like I've told you multiple times, the reason we took care of my sister's husband and niece was that it was an emergency situation. My sister was hospitalized. Your sister is a housewife and perfectly healthy, right? If it's so hard with 3 kids, maybe don't have so many in the first place. The concept that a wife should silently obey her husband and do all the housework is outdated. If you want to say such things, why don't you earn a double income like husbands from a generation ago? We never favored your sister's husband over you. We didn't bully you. Dad even invited you for drinks and to share hobbies, right? You're the one who declined. What does being cherished mean to you? There's a reason we treat you and your sister's husband differently. You know that. We've known him longer, and he was already like family before they got married. Remember I told you about when Dad got sick while I was in college? Your sister's husband was the one who stepped up and supported him. You never have a drink with Dad as an adult. You don't put any effort into family gatherings, always running away. It's okay if you're not comfortable with it. Running away is an option, but don't hold grudges for avoiding things you don't want to do. Is that what being cherished means to you? Is it that you have to be number one in everything? How old are you? It's unbecoming for an adult. Wanting a family that only serves your interests is unrealistic. You're just a child trying to create a world that's convenient for you under the pretense of equality. Also, about that music box, I can't trust someone who uses things to make threats. I don't have the confidence that we can continue as a married couple, so let's part ways. That's when my husband finally realized I was serious about divorce and started making bizarre threats. I looked down on him coldly, thinking that he might still have a chance if he apologized and admitted his mistakes. If you leave me, you'll be unhappy. I have a feeling. I'd rather not spend a lifetime with your feelings. I'd be happier without you. A married couple is one unit. Can you manage if you break off and become half a person? There would be no problem. I'd just go back to how I was before marrying you. We were always 2 separate individuals. The idea that a couple is one unit only holds when both are helping each other. I can live without your help, and I'd be emotionally and physically better off without you. Are you jealous of my sister? You guys left me alone much more. Hearing that, I burst into laughter. Jealous? Do you think I have that much emotional investment in you? As long as you don't bother me, I don't care what you and your sister do. If you 2 get along without relying on me, I won't mind. But if you ask me to take care of your nephew or cook, that's a different story. I'm willing to help if your sister is sick, but she's healthy, isn't she? Why should I do what she used to do as a matter of course? If you're going to treat me like a maid, shouldn't there be a salary involved? Isn't it presumptuous to expect me to work without any compensation? I do housework for you because you bring home a salary. I took care of my sister's husband and niece because my sister was in the hospital. Your sister isn't sick or financially dependent on you. If you want to be a reliable brother to her, then take action yourself. Don't involve me in your little facade. It seemed like my husband had been harboring feelings of inferiority towards me and my family for quite some time. He felt that since I made him feel inferior, I deserved to suffer or feel bad, as if that was only fair. I continually rejected that mindset. As a result, I secured my husband's agreement for divorce. You don't value my family, and you don't listen to me. I don't need a wife like that. Take all the savings. Take whatever you want. He signed the divorce papers, and we were officially separated. But that wasn't the end of it. My sister safely gave birth to her second child, a baby boy. As I was busy preparing to live alone, my ex-husband unexpectedly showed up at my family's home. Out of nowhere, he blurted, "I have a favor to ask. I tried inviting my sister over because I felt lonely, but she refused because I can't cook. So I've been ordering delivery, but I'm running out of money. We used to split living expenses, but now I have to cover everything myself, and I can't make ends meet. If I stop ordering food, my sister won't come over anymore. So can you help me out financially each month? We could get back together, you know." When he showed up asking for money instead of apologizing, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. What's the advantage for me to get back with you? I actually have more spending money now. I don't want to see your face ever again. If you show up again, I'm calling my lawyer. I had my dad and brother, who had come out just in time, send him away. Although he hasn't visited since, he still sends emails regularly. The more I read his incessant demands for money, the more I realize how poor my judgment of character was. I've been ignoring his emails, and eventually they stopped coming. Rumor has it he's drowning in debt and has gone on the run. I can't say for sure if that's true, but it seems he's definitely struggling financially. I have no lingering feelings for him, so as long as it doesn't ruin my peace of mind, that's fine by me. Right now, I'm living fulfilling days, playing with my family and chasing my dreams while working. Seeing my sister and her husband, it's clear that marriage can bring happiness, but I think there's also value in pursuing happiness that isn't tied to marriage. I might meet someone and remarry someday, or I might continue to chase my dreams and spend my days with my family. Either way, I want to live my life my way, seeking the kind of happiness that suits me, instead of conforming to society's general definition of happiness.
I realized I had been deceived during the first New Year's after marrying my husband, James. While helping with the holiday meal in the kitchen, my sister-in-law Emily made a snide comment. "Susan, are you bad at cooking? Make the presentation nicer. It's killing my appetite." I am no culinary genius, that's for sure. I struggle with presentations, but I was doing my best. Still, I thought it was unnecessary for her to call me out like that, especially with other female relatives around. I'm sorry. I usually don't pay much attention to that. I would appreciate some guidance. Just as I sincerely asked for help, my mother-in-law Tiffany interrupts and says to me, "Plating food is basic, right? Especially when it's James' favorite dish. You've never cooked it at home, so you don't have a sense of how to plate it, do you?" Poor James. He married a wife who can't even cook properly. There's a reason you have been divorced before, you know. Did your ex-husband cheat on you because he got tired of your bad cooking and careless personality? Tiffany and Emily took turns making these comments and finally walked away looking annoyed. They complained but never actually helped. Instead, another female relative stepped in to assist me. What surprised me more than being criticized for my lack of cooking skills was the drastic change in their attitude towards me. 6 months ago, I remarried. After divorcing my cheating ex-husband 2 years ago, I met James, who is younger than me. We hit it off and quickly started talking about marriage. Both James and I love spending time outdoors, so we went fishing and camping together. We decided to get married. James is active but kind, and I felt comfortable around him. I was worried whether his family would accept me, a divorcee.
But when I visited his family home, they welcomed me warmly and my worries vanished. It's nice to meet you, Susan. If you're okay with our son, please marry him. Good for you, James. You found a kind wife. I had some interactions with my previous husband's family, but we never got close. They were wealthy and formal, and I, being an ordinary person, couldn't fully understand their values. So I was honestly worried about getting along with this new family. But I thought everything would be fine since they welcomed me warmly. That sense of security must have been fake. Throughout my stay, Tiffany and Emily kept bad-mouthing me. I was shocked by their change in attitude. On the night of January 3rd, I finally returned home and felt relieved to the point of tears. Then, in August, during the summer vacation, my husband suggested going back to his family home, but now my anger and sadness had faded, and I thought maybe they were just stressed out at that time. It's not very popular to drag on and complain about the past few days. I was still a bit scared of Tiffany and Emily, but I thought I could manage for a few days. So I decided to accompany my husband back to his family home. Let's buy lots of gifts to make them happy. If I bring gifts, we'll surely have a pleasant conversation. I thought that the New Year's incident was just a bad dream. I kept thinking that until we arrive at my in-laws' home, which is in a coastal town in the neighboring state. We drove half the day, and due to traffic, we arrived in the evening. Welcome home, James. Susan. Tiffany smiled warmly, happy to see her son after a long time. She also gave me a kind smile. Emily, standing next to Tiffany, accepted the gifts and thanked me with a smile. I felt relieved. I was right. That day, they were just in a bad mood. Ah, James. Dad and the uncles are at their usual bar. Why don't you join them? They all seem to want to see you.
Really? Hey, Susan, want to come along?
James asked me gently. I was planning to go, but Tiffany stopped me. Oh, we were planning to have a girls-only time. Thought Susan might enjoy that more. Ah, if that's the case, go ahead, James. Have fun. James looked like he wanted to say something, but eventually left alone saying,
if Susan is okay with it.
After seeing off James, I tidied up a bit and headed to the living room for the girls-only time that Tiffany mentioned. Tiffany, since it's girls only, is there something I should do? When I asked Tiffany, she happily replied, I was thinking of making some tea. Could you pick some herbs from the garden? The ones with white flowers? Oh, Susan, while you're at it, could you feed the dog? They have a large dog at their home. The dog is gentle and has taken a liking to me, which is adorable. I have always wanted a dog, but couldn't afford one as a child. So I was genuinely happy to take care of the dog. Sure, I'll head to the garden. I took a bowl for the herbs and a plate for the dog food, put on my sandals, and went out to the garden. Immediately after, I heard the sound of a lock. I turned around in a panic. Tiffany and Emily were watching me through the window smirking. That's when I realized I had been tricked by Tiffany and Emily again. They had intentionally given me a task outside. They even sent James away and kept me here under the guise of a girls-only time, all to lock me out? Tiffany and Emily are terrible people who take pleasures in such childish malice. They ridiculed me for being a divorcee and bad at cooking during New Year's, but that was just talk. This time they actually locked me out. Come on, this is a joke, right? Let me in. I knocked on the window, but Tiffany and Emily didn't even touch it. A woman like you, raised by a single parent and bad at housework, doesn't belong in our home. We don't need to feed you or give you a place to sleep. If you still want to stay, why not sleep in the doghouse? It's a large doghouse. They're suggesting that someone as petite as me could fit in there? Hilarious, Susan. You've become a dog. Emily clapped her hands and laughed. This is cruel. Stop it, please. But they just laughed and didn't lock the door. I wondered how to get back inside, but realized that even if they let me in, they would probably continue to mistreat me. Then it hit me. My car keys were still in my pocket. If I can't go inside the house or join my husband, I can just kill time outside, I thought. I took something out of the car and quickly set it up. Tiffany and Emily, surprised by the noise outside, opened the curtains to see what was going on. What on earth is she doing? Tiffany covered her mouth in astonishment. And for good reason. What I had taken out of the car and set up was a tent we used on last week's camping trip. They probably never expected me to opt for outdoor comfort. Stop it, you are ruining the lawn. You are so rude. You are never setting foot in this house again. Ignoring Tiffany and Emily, I decided to make myself some hot coffee on a small camping stove I had left in the car. Even though it's summer, it had been cloudy all day and it got quite chilly as night fell. It's a season for iced coffee, but hot coffee felt more satisfying. Before I knew it, the family dog who had come out of the doghouse came over to warm up by the fire. Sorry for the noise. Oh, right. I was supposed to feed you, wasn't I? Here you go. I put the plate of dog food I had left on the ground in front of him, and he started eating with gusto. When I petted him, he let out a happy little bark. I thought I had no allies in this house, but with this big, gentle dog here, I knew I would be okay until my husband returned. But my husband had left in the evening. If he's drinking, he won't be back for a while. Let's go into the tent. You can come too. I lay down in the tent with the dog. I petted the dog sitting next to me and noticed that despite his fluffy fur, he was quite thin. It must have been a long time since he had been petted, as he was snorting happily. Maybe this dog doesn't get much attention? Is this the first time he's been petted in a while? He seemed really happy. I started to worry more about this dog than about myself. Shall we go find them? No point staying here. The dog probably didn't understand my words, but when I spoke, he barked and seemed to nudge me forward. I folded up the tent, got in the car with the dog, and drove into town. I parked the car in a random lot and walked around the town with the dog. There are so many bars, it's hard to tell, I said to the dog as we walked, but he led the way. However, I heard familiar voices coming from a bar in the direction the dog was heading. It was my father-in-law Thomas and James. The dog must have led me here by recognizing their scents or voices. Sure enough, when I entered the bar, my husband looked surprised.
Susan, what are you doing here? And you brought the dog?
I felt a sense of relief at finally seeing another human, but there was something else I needed to address. Is this place pet-friendly? Can the dog and I come in? The bar's policy was against it, but Thomas and his relatives were regulars, so they made an exception.
Susan, it must have been cold outside. Here, have a drink.
I took a sip from the glass that was handed to me. Delicious, not just the drink, but the kindness of my husband's relatives, who were meeting me for the first time, warmed my heart. I kept drinking as they encouraged me to have another glass and another, and soon I felt the alcohol taking effect. When you're tipsy, you start to say things you have been holding back. Tiffany and Emily locked us out, so we had no choice but to come here, I said. I couldn't stop talking about what happened today and on New Year's. I might be judged for it. If I were sober, I might have worried about that. But I was drunk and didn't care, and everyone, including my husband and Thomas, listened intently. After I finished speaking, one of the relatives said, "Again?
Those two are at it again?"
That triggered a flood of stories about Tiffany and Emily.
They did the same thing when they were supposed to be taking care of James's grandmother. She eventually moved into a nursing home because she couldn't take it anymore. And it's not just that. They don't even take care of that dog. They leave it all to their husbands.
When the uncle said that, Thomas finally spoke up.
I thought about divorcing them when they mistreated my mother, but what they did to you, my son's wife, is unforgivable. I can't take it anymore.
Thomas stood up. When we returned home, Thomas finally confronted Tiffany and Emily.
Let's get a divorce. Leave now.
But Tiffany and Emily fought back. Susan is also to blame. She set up a tent and even took the dog into town. That's so unreasonable. I don't see it that way. Kicking someone out into the cold is what's unreasonable. What do you think family is? I wanted to get along with you, but I have reached my limit. I don't want to consider people like you as family. Tiffany and Emily glared at me, but then they screamed. The dog had growled at them. Thomas spoke as if he were looking at something pathetic.
You never took care of that dog. You didn't feed him. or walk him. You're not even worthy of being his owner. It serves you right to be growled at. You're not part of this family. Leave now."
Thomas made them pack their bags and kick them out regardless of the time. Tiffany and Emily left without arguing, probably because Thomas was so intimidating. They didn't have much in terms of assets, so they ended up living in a small apartment to save money. But they were spendthrifts to begin with, so they soon ran into financial difficulties. Not only does Tiffany have to worry about everyday expenses, but she also has to pay alimony. She's probably struggling with Emily, both of them working hard at jobs they're not used to. As for me, with Tiffany and Emily gone, my husband and I decided to move in with Thomas so he wouldn't be lonely. Changing jobs was a concern, but I found a new one sooner than expected, so that was a relief. Since moving, life has been joyful every day with kind-hearted Thomas, my loving husband, and our pet dog, who's become like a friend to me. Relatives also started visiting more often. Surrounded by lively people who love alcohol, learning about various delicious drinks and enjoying conversation over drinks has become one of my hobbies.